Good evening and welcome to BBC London with me, Assad Ahmed. On the programme tonight, the family of a man who placed 600 bets shortly before taking his own life call for more recognition and support for gambling-related deaths.
We need to do what we can to raise awareness to protect the public and to protect all the other families that are going to go through the devastation that we have.
We'll have more on that story in a moment. Also on the programme, we hear from Londoners struggling to reach family and friends in Iran as protests continue across the country.
They're going to play on, they're going to score! They messed that up.
The booming popularity of the Baller League as former footballers, influencers and celebrities gear up for big matches in Stratford this weekend.
We have all sorts of different characters. We've got fleas doing Chinese pole, we've got ants doing foot juggling.
Yeah, the Royal Albert Hall tonight to be taken over by performers pretending to be insects as a spectacular Cirque du Soleil roll into town. Good evening. The family of a man who say he took his own life after placing more than 600 bets in an hour have told BBC London that the inquest into his death was a battle from beginning to end. The family of Lee Adams say they struggled to persuade the coroner to consider that gambling was even a factor in his death. Well, it took 5 years before a coroner finally did conclude that a gambling disorder was one of the causes. Lee's cousin Natalie described what Lee was like at the time to Megan Owen.
He was working, he was enjoying his work. He'd started a new relationship and was seeing somebody. He was making plans for the future. We just didn't have any idea that that's the point that he was getting to.
In the early hours of July the 24th, 2020, in the middle of lockdown, 36-year-old Lee Adams received his monthly salary and placed over 600 bets on online slots in just over an hour, according to his family. Shortly after, he ended his life.
It was completely, a complete shock. You maybe have this naive view that couldn't happen to your family or wouldn't happen to your family, and we didn't view Lee as in a really bad place.
Lee's cousin Natalie, who grew up with him, says in the months before his death, he'd had a significant win of over £90,000 on online slots. He put thousands back onto online gambling sites and things began to spiral.
I suggested us keeping some of the money for him to help him out, but he, kind of insisted he was fine. But it wasn't until kind of June and July, when obviously his funds had run out and he'd asked family to borrow money, that it was becoming clearer that it was a problem.
5 years later, in November 2025, a coroner found that Lee had a long-term depressive illness and a gambling disorder which had also contributed to his death. The coroner said there were missed opportunities by the gambling operator at the time, although these did not contribute to his death.
In terms of the operator, it's been a battle for us to show what was happening and how bad his gambling was and the lack of interventions from them. And I didn't think it would be that challenging.
There are up to 496 gambling-related suicides in England every year, and yet the family's solicitors say this is only the third inquest they're aware of since 2022, where the coroner has recognised the contribution of gambling to a self-inflicted death.
Often when concerns are raised with the coroner, there is a resistance to investigating those concerns. Often families don't have legal representation at inquests, and they're up against potentially gambling operators who have very deep resources and legal teams. I think it's very important that coroners become more aware of the links between gambling and suicide.
New guidance last year advised GPs in England to ask patients about gambling habits during checkups, like they would with smoking and alcohol. A move welcomed by the charity Gambling with Lives, set up by Charles and his wife after their son Jack took his life after battling a gambling addiction.
What we want as a charity is that any family that it believes where gambling is present, that should be investigated as part of the inquest process. These people, we believe, have been abused throughout their life by gambling and gambling operators. They need justice. But as a society, we need the learning from those deaths as well.
A government spokesperson said, while we understand the desire for better information about links between gambling and suicide, simply asking coroners to record motivation would not provide a reliable picture, as they're often working with limited or incomplete information. The government adds it's focusing on preventing suicides in the first place. We also contacted the judiciary and Southwark Coroner's Court, but neither have provided a comment. Lee's family welcomed the coroner's decision to include gambling as a cause of death, but feel the operator wasn't held to account and that the inquest was an uphill battle.
We need to do what we can to raise awareness, to protect the public and to protect all the other families that are going to go through the devastation that we have.
That was Natalie Ashbolts speaking to our correspondent Megan Owen. And if gambling is an issue you're concerned about, or maybe for someone you know, the BBC has information on organisations who can help. All you have to do is search for BBC Action Line to find out more. Just go direct to bbc.co.uk/Action Line. Now, if you're not sure about getting in touch, do at least take a look at the page there because support, like I say, is available if you want it. Well, the time now is 6:37. Still to come on BBC London this evening. We meet the star player of Football League with a difference.
I'm Kazal Sterling, Ball League's MVP, and I'm going to be telling you about Sunday's Final Four.
4 players on the pitch there, ref. They're going to put it on, they're going to score. They messed that up 10.
With anti-government protests continuing in Iran, Londoners with family in the country have been following what's going on very closely. There are tens of thousands of Iranians living here, many following what's going on closely, although that's been made harder as a result of what appears to be a nationwide internet blackout in Iran. Alice Bandakravi has been hearing from some London Iranians.
There is a large Iranian diaspora in London who are feeling events in Iran keenly. With virtually no internet and a near communication blackout, many have been unable to reach their friends and family. Mohammed runs an Iranian restaurant in the West End.
My parents living there, my sisters and friends, well, all my family living there. We couldn't contact anyone so far, even with the normal landline, we can't contact anyone. We really need some help to having some kind of internet and connection with the country.
Scenes like this make up most of what we've seen coming out of Iran, and the lack of actual contact on the ground is causing some anxiety for Iranian Londoners.
For those of us who are outside of Iran, it's, we're safe. It's really the worry of those inside. Obviously, it's very inspirational. It's amazing to see courage. It's also very concerning. So it's this mix of emotions of being hopeful, being cautiously hopeful, being scared. So it's, kind of a mixed bag of everything.
It's the 13th day of protests like these in Iran. The BBC and other international news organisations are barred from reporting there. That just adds to the sense of isolation felt by Iranians here. Alice Bandukravi, BBC London.
In a few months' time, all 32 London councils will hold elections. They come once every 4 years, and eyeing them up very closely is the Reform Party. They already announced this week their candidate for the mayoral elections in more than 2 years' time. So what are they planning for the election in just 5 months' time? Well, tonight, Reform are holding a rally at the Excel Centre in East London. Our political correspondent, Susanna Mendonça, is there for us. And Susanna, why are Reform starting their campaigning so early?
Well, I think they've got a real opportunity in London to make some gains in the local elections. And so they've got a rally here today. They're asking supporters to join them to become council candidates, potentially. And they're going to be having a speech by Nigel Farage a little later. There are probably around 500 or so people in there when we were in there a little while ago, more people filling up. But Reform have got a big mountain to climb in London because they haven't had much electoral success. They've only got 2 seats on the London Assembly Sadly, one of those was a defection. In terms of councillors, and we have council elections this year, they've only got 9 councillors and just one of those was elected in a by-election. But there is concern among Conservatives that they might take some Tory seats in some of certainly those outer London boroughs where the Conservatives currently hold some councils. And Reform are really going to be pushing issues like crime, issues like housing. I spoke to their mayoral candidate. They announced their mayoral candidate earlier this week, 2 years early actually before that election. And she is an interesting character because she's actually somebody who is from a Muslim Egyptian background. I asked her how the messaging from Reform around immigration potentially might play with Londoners, of course, in a very diverse city like this.
I'm the daughter of immigrants. We're not anti-immigrants, we're anti-illegal immigrants. And we're anti-immigrants who come here and don't want to contribute. And, you know, as we've said before, if you want to come to England, you want to work, you want to contribute, you want to love the country, then you're more than welcome. And I think that message actually does resonate with Londoners.
Susanna, all the parties, of course, are hoping to do well in May's election. What do you think we can expect?
Yeah, so we've got all 32 boroughs having all-out elections. Last time round in 2022, when we had these elections, Labour had 21 of those councils, the Conservatives held on to just 5 and the Lib Dems had 3. So they'll be hoping to hold on to the ones that they've got. Of course, councils are very important because they deliver our local services. They provide social care for elderly and young people who are vulnerable. They also provide housing for those who are homeless in London. So very important roles. In terms of the smaller parties, they really do think that they can potentially make some gains. We've talked about Reform. Liberal Democrats are hoping to make gains, but also the Green Party, I think, are an interesting one to look at. Last time round, they won 18 seats in London. This time round, they're going into this with around 40-odd defections. They've won 4 by-elections. So they're really building on the momentum that we've seen with their new leader. Now, of course, those elections being held on the 7th of May. We're here at the Reform rally today, but of course, we will be covering all of the political parties and all of the policies that they're going to be setting out in the coming weeks and months to appeal to voters across London.
Yeah, even people who don't normally follow elections, I'm sure, will be interested in this one. Susanna Mendonça, thank you very much at the Excel Centre. Now, a way of spotting early signs of heart disease whilst also easing pressures on GP surgeries is being trialled in East London. St Bart's Hospital is working with pharmacies to test and treat high cholesterol levels without patients having to see the doctor. Well, early signs show it's working well, which is why it's being expanded. Lakshmi Gopal went to find out more about it.
A fast, free blood cholesterol test, not at a hospital or GP surgery, but at a pharmacy in Poplar in Tower Hamlets, through a finger prick test.
It literally took 10 minutes. I don't have to worry about thinking too ahead in advance about booking an appointment, and also it was painless, which is quite important. They didn't take sort of pints of blood or anything. It was just the tiniest amount of blood, and yeah, I didn't feel a thing.
The pilot, in around a dozen pharmacies in North East London, is in partnership with Bart's Hospital, which says around 220 people in East London die from heart and circulatory conditions every month. There's greater need for testing with the region's deprivation level and demographic.
Because we've got the large Asian population and Afro-Caribbean populations, which have got the highest risk for diabetes, heart attack and strokes, this is the reason why we feel that the program that we've got at the moment is very important for prevention of cardiovascular disease.
The aim is for pharmacies to prescribe any necessary treatment, cutting GPs out of the process completely. Though this won't be possible in all cases, even just the testing being more accessible makes a big difference.
If you think about heart disease, it's still one of the biggest killers in the UK. And we know that as part of that, we know that 1/3 of people having heart attacks is due to high cholesterol. The problem is that we've got millions of people who don't understand or know their cholesterol. And what we are doing here is complementing already established NHS pathways to increase the accessibility of people to have those tests.
The government minister couldn't say how much funding the scheme needs, but the idea is that easier, earlier diagnosis and freeing up GPs' time is cost-saving.
One of the commitments from the government is that we're moving more NHS services from hospitals and more traditional settings into the local community in places like community pharmacies, because it's more convenient for patients and often closer to where they live or work, and it's a much cheaper and more efficient way to provide those healthcare services to patients.
The scheme's now being rolled out to 70 more North East London pharmacies, and it's hoped it could be extended across the country as the challenge of easing pressure on the NHS continues. Laxmi Gopal, BBC London.
This is BBC London on BBC One and the iPlayer. Still to come on the programme. As the incredible acrobatic performers of Cirque du Soleil return to the Royal Albert Hall tonight, we take a look behind the scenes. And blinker, you'll miss it, a close encounter with a whale for two rowers from Buckinghamshire. Former Tottenham footballer Keziah Sterling suffered injury and illness which contributed to his exit from the club at the young age of 22. But he's now a huge name in a sport which is becoming every bit as popular as regular football. It's the Baller League competition, which has only been around, well, a couple of years now. It's six-a-side football, which celebrities and influencers take part in too. Chris Slegg went to meet Sterling.
Keziah Sterling was voted Baller League's most valuable player last season. This year he's fired his team, SDS, back to the Final Four. On Sunday at the Copper Box, they hope to be crowned champions once more.
I think we've got a good chance, we've got a good team. We've picked up some good form as well. So I feel like we've got a good chance and everyone's looking forward to it.
Well, Keziah Sterling is coming on for Spurs, 19 years old, replacing Lucas Moura.
He played for Tottenham in the FA Cup and Champions League, but in 2021, aged 22, he was released by Spurs. A serious condition called rhabdomyolysis has hospitalised him several times and played a part in derailing his hopes of a pro career.
How difficult was it to come so close to fulfilling that dream as a Premier League player and then injuries to take it away?
Honestly, I feel like in life you never know what's going to happen. This time last year I didn't think I'd be involved in anything like this, and then here I am today. So I feel like that just shows that in life you just got to be just hopeful, put your faith in stuff, and then things will work out.
Former Chelsea goalkeeper Petr Cech was among the famous faces recruited to Baller League this year, while team managers have included John Terry, Alan Shearer and Idris Elba. Sunday's final is likely to be watched by a bigger audience than some of this weekend's televised FA Cup ties, if it matches last year's total of 2 million viewers.
I think it says a lot, honestly. It's not just only the big professional Premier League games that are getting coverage. It's stuff like this. That was only the first season of it. It's only been going on a few months, and it got that many viewers. So it just goes to show how big it can get in the space of such a short time.
Whoever wins on Sunday, Keziah Sterling is a baller. Chris Slegg, BBC London.
Oh, that looks good. Now, the Baller League matches aren't the only ones this weekend because it's a busy third round in the Men's FA Cup too. Here's BBC Radio London's Nick Godwin.
It's FA Cup third round weekend, and we've got 4 live games for you across the weekend, all of them on 94.9 FM and on BBC Sounds. We start tomorrow at 2 o'clock with Burnley against Millwall. Then from 5:45, it's Tottenham against Aston Villa, and at 8, Charlton Athletic against Chelsea in the London derby. And then on Sunday, we're back on air at 2 o'clock for West Ham against Queen's Park Rangers. All of those games on 94.9 FM and BBC Sound. So whatever you're doing across the weekend, take BBC Radio London and the FA Cup with you on BBC Sounds.
Known the world over for its breathtaking acrobatics and colourful sets, Cirque du Soleil is back in London. This year, they bring the insect world to life in a way that you'll never have seen before. The show's team comes from all over the world. But for performers from London, well, the Royal Albert Hall, that's virtually home. Anna O'Neill went behind the scenes before opening night tonight.
Springing into the final preparations at the Royal Albert Hall. These are the circus performers for OVO by Cirque du Soleil, which opens tonight. And one of them is gymnast Romani.
I am the youngest artist, I'm 20. I think the next one is the hand balancer, he's 22, I want to say, 23.
Romani plays a tumbling cricket in a show all about bugs. And he's been in it since his professional gymnastics career for Team GB finished when he was 18.
I actually went to my first gymnastics class when I was 12 years old. Tumbling is a very high-level sport, but it's not something that's in the Olympics. So the highest level for us is the World Games or the World Championships. Yeah! I turned 18, put my demo video in, sent my resume, and a few months later I was here on this stage.
So the first time I ever saw Cirque du Soleil was just over there.
Lydia became inspired to join the circus after her grandmother brought her here to see a show as a teen.
Trained as an acrobat, specialised in Chinese pole actually, which is what we see behind me. And then I got into circus as an acrobat.
So tell me a little bit about the show then. It's been running for a long time, but it keeps evolving, doesn't it?
The story behind it is a day in the life of the insects. We have all sorts of different characters. We've got fleas doing Chinese pole, we've got ants doing foot juggling, spiders that do contortion, everything you can imagine and more. And all told through the lens of two clowns who meet for the first time and fall in love.
One of those clowns carries a giant egg on his back. And as the show uses no words, he has to explain what's happening through physical theatre.
There's a colony that's getting on with life, and he turns up with this thing on his back. In this show, we don't have any words. We have our own clown language, but the story is essentially a physical story. We show everything with the body, yeah. So they're making huge visual shows. They need bodies that are very, very expressive from a very long way away. This is an arena show, so often we're in spaces even bigger than the Royal Albert Hall, with people 100 metres away, and they need to see exactly what I'm thinking or feeling.
For Lydia, it's a full circle moment on her journey from audience member to now artistic director of OVO.
It's a complete dream come true. I never thought it would happen. It was one of those sort of bucket list, oh, maybe one day, and I'm here, all my friends and family are going to come and see it. My grandma's going to come and see what she helped create, so it's very exciting.
Cirque du Soleil's OVO runs from tonight until Sunday the 1st of March. Anna O'Neill, BBC London.
Oh, how good does that look? And wait till you see what's on next, because while parts of the country have been coping with the snow and storms this week, some rowers, including two from Buckinghamshire, have been dealing with a non-weather related issue: whales swimming very close to their boat. The team are rowing across the Atlantic for charity in a boat made in Essex. Debbie Tubby contacted them to hear exactly what happened.
Blink and you'll miss it, but the crew will retell this moment forever.
Unbelievable. All I just heard was whale, 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 and then got out of the cabin just in time just to see it.
It is a quick shot but powerful, a breathtaking moment while rowing across the Atlantic. It was one of a pod of whales caught on camera.
The whale was reaching right here and then dived under the boat and sort of flicked its tail up at us. So if I was a second later, I probably would have missed it.
They've also seen dolphins, and there's nothing like fishing across the pond with a bit of hull cleaning which protects the boat and maintains efficiency.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime experience that not many people get to do, so we're feeling very, very fortunate to be out here.
They left the Canary Islands for Antigua last month, rowing 3,000 miles. They've passed halfway, at the back of the pack, but they're not doing it for records. They're raising money for the Matt Hampson Foundation, helping youngsters with serious sporting injuries, but it's not all been plain sailing.
Going through the motions of potentially having to pump our fresh water by hand, which would have been 8 hours a day of pumping fresh water each, was a pretty scary thought. So yeah, there are highs and lows, and I wouldn't trade any of them for anything. It's all part of the experience.
But it's a reminder of the unpredictable nature of one of the remotest places on Earth. Debbie Tubby, BBC London.
What an incredible experience that must have been. Now we're moving on to the weather, and Storm Goretti has had an impact across England, but not much in and around London, I have to say. A bit of wind and rain today, which was not too bad considering. Jennifer, what's it going to be like from now on in?
We're getting a little bit better as we head through the weekend. Good evening to you. As you say, we've escaped the worst of the impacts, but we have had a bit of a gloomy day with it. Lots of clouds, some outbreaks of rain and some quite brisk winds as well. It's been quite gusty out there. Now, as we head into the weekend, things are going to improve for a time, certainly in terms of the cloud and the wind, and then things are going to be getting a little bit milder. We'll get to that in just a second, but let me show you the pressure chart first of all. This is Storm Goretti moving out now across the Netherlands into Germany. A brief period of quieter weather over the weekend before our next area of low pressure moves in through Sunday. But for this evening and overnight, one thing to mention is that we do still have yellow warnings around the region for ice. Now, even if you're not covered by the ice warning, there is still a risk that you might see some of that tomorrow morning. Temperatures overnight dropping down close to freezing. Now, tomorrow morning, still those ice warnings in place until around midday. But what we do have is a dry start to the day with some weak winter sunshine. Now, it's not really going to be affecting the temperatures. The wind will be a little bit lighter, but it will feel a little bit more cheerful. So 3 or 4 degrees Celsius the high through tomorrow afternoon. Let's look at Saturday evening then. A quiet start to the night. Again, the winds are still quite light. We'll have some clear spells at first, but the cloud will start to encroach from the west as we head towards Sunday morning. And that's that next weather system that we saw, that next weather front. The temperatures by around 5 o'clock on Sunday morning still hovering around freezing, so we're not quite into the milder air just yet. This is how Sunday is looking then. A fairly cloudy day. The wind will be ramping up as we head through the day, and we'll see some outbreaks of rain on and off. It might be a little bit heavier from time to time, but generally it's going to be a damp sort of a day. But these temperatures on Sunday already a little bit milder, 7, 8 degrees Celsius. It is going to be getting milder than that, though, as we head into Monday. The pressure chart, you can see the isobars. It's going to be staying fairly unsettled as we head into the start of next week. But take a look at these temperatures. By Monday, we're getting up to 12 degrees Celsius, feeling positively tropical. That's sad.
Yeah, exactly, especially after a chilly day tomorrow. Thanks very much for that, Jennifer. Now, before we go, time for a quick recap of some of the main news in the headlines today. A wave of anti-government protests are continuing for a 13th day in Iran. That's despite defiance from Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He called the protesters a bunch of vandals and said his government will not back down. Around 50,000 homes are still without power tonight after Storm Goretti swept across large parts of England and Wales with wind gusts of almost 100 miles an hour. New warnings for snow and ice have been issued covering most of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland and parts of northern England. Well, that's it. I'm back at 10:30 with our late news tonight on BBC One. Hope you can join me then. On behalf of the BBC London Early Evening News team, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.